As the Story Grows, I'm Brian Patton. Today we welcome Warbringer frontman John Kevill to the podcast. Warbringer's new album, Wrath and Ruin, was released last Friday with Napalm Records. John talks about why he loves thrash metal, how his love for history influences the band's lyrical direction, the origins of the band's name, the theme behind Wrath and Ruin, and more. I had an absolute blast talking to John, and it's a bit of a bummer we only had half an hour to chat because I'm sure there's a lot more we could have gotten into. So I hope you guys enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. Thanks so much for listening to As the Story Grows. If you're brand new to the podcast, welcome. Thanks for checking us out. You can find links in the show notes for the podcast mailing list, our community over on Discord, and our Patreon page where $1 a month gets you early access to every episode. And I would love it if you subscribed to the podcast on your podcast platform of choice so you never miss an episode. Enjoy today's conversation with John Kevill from Warbringer. But not nice and early. I assume you're out on the East Coast and not in LA, right?
Yeah, I'm in the East Coast. It's early for me. It's not actually early. I'm a night person.
I get that for sure. Well, thanks for taking the time. I know you got another one, so we won't fuck around.
Thanks for your time as well. I appreciate you caring, giving enough of a shit to want to talk about my band. So that's really nice.
Yeah. I want to start. I've been on this like metal journey the last, I don't know, let's say decade, because like my background is hardcore and like I really love like sludge doom metal. And then about like 7 years ago, I got really into black metal. And the last few years, it's been symphonic, pirate power metal. But thrash metal has always been the genre where I'm like, no, I can't do it. So
that's strange to me. It's like riffs are cool. That's the thing thrash has going for it.
Well, right. And I think listening to your discography, I think the thing for me that clicked is it's the vocals. The vocals are always a barrier. And like your vocals are just different from, I guess, the traditional thrash vocals.
Thrash is kind of weird because there isn't, unlike, say, a lot of genres that you name, there isn't like an overarching style. You have your Hetfields or your Chuck Billies or stuff who are melodic. You have your like Zetro or Bobby Blitz who are almost like this intensified Bon Scott kind of thing. Then you have like Mila Petraza and Tom Angel Ripper who arguably did some of the first black metal vocals on record.
Sure.
And then you have your like Don Dottie and Tom Araya and the Rapid Fire Barkers and all that kind of. And then you have some like, if you dig around, there's some real just like out there oddball shit too that I kind of enjoy. You're Sean Killian from Violence, or you have weird stuff like Shar Aspid from Russia, or all this stuff in the 80s thrash canon. Yeah. And I like how wacky and weird the vocals are sometimes. And I guess what I'm trying to do is very much, I would say, take some of the Slayer-esque or like the German thrash vocals, kind of all the fast, evil barking, and just make it as like decipherable and as catchy as I can. That's my MO as a thrash singer. But it's funny you say it, because in my view, my taste could be described as old Hesher guy kind of. It's like, to my view, what I'm doing is very much like sits in there, and we have the benefits of I've played 1 million shows and we have modern production and stuff. So that's pretty much
yeah. So like I listened to the single or whichever single was sent over, and I was like, okay, that's cool. I'm gonna take a chance on this band, and I bought and downloaded your discography and put it on my phone, and I'm like, all right, I'm either going to love thrash or this is going to be like a miserable week of listening to music for me. And I enjoyed your discography a lot. So I guess what was it about thrash metal for you that like that was the genre that like cemented itself on you and like you wanted to play?
Well, a couple of things. So I'm by no means strictly a thrash metal listener. That would be ridiculous, I think. Right, because why? Even as much as I just said it's a wide genre, music is even wider. So, it'd be like saying, so my favorite color is green, but it would be stupid of me to be like, I don't want to see blue or yellow anywhere. Like, come on, but it was a couple. So actually, when I started out, I was more into what you might say like speed and power and heavy metal, just regular old like traditional metal. And we were playing, and basically it was my first band ever, and I can't sing that stuff. Like, it's hard to do. If you're into like Rob Halford and Eric Adams, and it's hard to do that. I can get a good high whale out of myself from time to time, and I'm better now than I was when I started the band. I should hope so. So I couldn't, amateur me couldn't do the kind of like heavy / power vocals that I wanted to, because I'd never trained for it or played in a band, and so you just can't do it without that. So part of it was just I was listening to different metal records in my car and just trying to imitate the vocals I heard. And I found with some of the thrash stuff I could. And there's like there's an old Canadian thrash band called Sacrifice who does a very specific type of high scream, mostly on their first and second records. And I found I could get more or less that sound out. And it sounds like if you lit someone on fire and they were like, ah! It's pretty, I love it. That's like my shriek comes from that. And I found I could do a pretty good, just evil sounding bark. And that's pretty much, and also we were just as a band, as we listened to metal together, and we kind of discovered old metal and current metal of our time. But we were more, we got into our old stuff, and that's how the band became what it is. So as we kind of discovered this together, we were teenagers. We pushed towards heavier stuff. And that led us into thrash pretty much. So the other thing too, there's just like, I do think of all the heavy music styles, I think thrash is the best one live, hands down. Because it has that punk rock derived energy and stuff. And also I think like kind of the artistic MO has more in common with punk than most of the rest of metal. And it has that just like pissed off, it has like that pissed off raw energy to it, and then a fair amount of it, just like punk, not all of it, but a fair amount of it has that like social, political, conscious, and anger to it, which is a good artistic MO. And I think our later work goes more in that direction. Our early work is just violence for its own sake.
Well, that kind of leads to my next question. Outside of Warbringer just being like a cool metal band name, having just watched The Science of Thrash the other day, like you see, like especially from a lyric place, like very intentional in what you want to say. So was there some inspiration for Warbringer as a band name, or if not, has what that name means evolved over the years?
I would say more the second, because it was straight up when we're trying to get the band name, we were just trying to come up with something cool and metal sounding. Now, as it turns out, one of my interests since I was a kid was history of battles and stuff. So, and I like strategy war games, and I like to nerd out on that stuff. And, don't start talking to me about Napoleon. I've read about every battle the French army fought with Napoleon. I got this book, The Campaigns of Napoleon. Your Napoleonic, your First World War, your Second World War, your modern geopolitics and stuff. I'm into all that, and it's a dismal subject, quite frankly. Like, it's the most depressing shit ever. But I'm really interested in, and there is crazy stuff, and it helps explain the world. So I was interested in this since I was a kid. About halfway through the band's career, I had some years off, and I went and actually studied formally. So that definitely, I think, helped me write about it better and kind of clarify my artistic MO. But the band name was straight up, it was a dumb reason. It wasn't anything as interesting or artistic. It was, we're looking for metal-sounding band names, and Andy Locks, our bass player early on, is reading the Diablo 2 monster list, the monsters, and he starts attaching random metal sounding words to them. So there was like a pain bringer or torment bringer or something. He changed it to Warbringer. And we're like, that sounds like a bad guy in spiky armor on a horse who's going to sack your town or something. Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome. Speaking of the science of thrash, some bands like to kind of keep their music open to interpretation, or for fans to just take what they want from the music. What led you guys to the decision to kind of document your last record and like do a riff breakdown, do a lyric breakdown and analysis?
Because we did that analysis ourselves, so we just thought it was fun to share it. It doesn't mean that whatever, like, you can interpret the songs however you like, even if it flatly disagrees with what I say, because it's yours when you listen to it, you know? Right. So I just want to share the process and where I'm coming from writing it. And I think that there's often in metal this like stereotype of, the vocalist is just a dude screaming, you may as well be completely inarticulate. Right. It doesn't matter. And as a vocalist and a lyric writer, I'm like, I have to reject that or I'm not worth a shit.
Yeah.
If I'm interchangeable grunter, then what the fuck am I doing here for 20 years? Right? Like, I have to bring you the audience. I owe it to the people. I owe it to myself, So I try to do that as best as I can. And I try to, and I think we've done a good job of it. I think Warbringer's gotten some recognition for the themes and ideas and some of the the elements besides having sick riffs or whatever.
Yeah.
We also do that. But, it's, I think most of the best stuff has some angle lyrically. It doesn't have to be anything, we have songs that are aiming at subjects I might call complex or whatever. And then we have other songs that are basically not at all. We have a song called The Jackhammer on this record. So, we try to run the gamut, but I try to explain all that because it's like there is a thought process. We do think it through. And, it's worth putting out, I think. And I think we write a little different from a lot of metal bands in that we actually prioritize, like, this song is about this, so it should sound like this to really get that vibe across. And we put that thought into our music. So we want people to kind of see that thought, because you're actually not the first journalist to date to talk about watching that one. And so it's cool that we have that documented. Here's everything we're thinking for every song on Weapons of Tomorrow. We haven't done it on this record, but I'm doing a slew of interviews where I talk about the same stuff.
Right. Yeah. No, it's cool to get that background. It's also fun to be like, here's a song about the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand. Here's a song about a tank crushing skulls.
Okay, so the Crush Beneath the Tracks, the tank crushing skulls is a metaphor for technological progress.
Yes.
So there is something there. And the Franz Ferdinand assassination one of the things that interested me in that is you often hear about conspiracy theories, and I'm not one for the baseless ones, right?
Yeah.
I'm like the least fun person to talk to if you want to talk about like aliens or whatever. But there are real conspiracies in history that are documented and scholarly. And one of them is like the Franz Ferdinand assassination. There was a cell in the Serbian army called the Black Hand that got, Bosnian Serbs to, it got young students, college students, to carry out an assassination of a future head of state. Like, that is a conspiracy, 100%. There's other ones too. Another successful conspiracy is stuff. If you look at like the think tank stuff, like the Mont Pelerin Society, they successfully basically got rid of the New Deal and the post World War II bargain for workers and got this whole techno oligarchic thing going. They pulled it off. They did it. It took them about 50 years. That's real. That's not some tinfoil. I mean, you if you don't explain yourself well, you'll look like the Charlie from Always Sunny pointing at the wall. You can always look like that if you're trying to explain that stuff. But it's real. Like, you can find books about it and stuff that are, with their citations and stuff. So I do think that's just an interesting thing, is that, like, there's a big separation between actual conspiracies and the one people say, oh, do you want me to just bury a popular one?
Sure.
Okay, here's how I know the United States actually landed on the moon.
Okay.
Because here's why. So I don't know. It's possible, I suppose, that the video was not, in fact, filmed on the moon. That is possible. But the U.S. went there. And the reason I know is because the Soviet Union never said they didn't.
Yeah.
That settles it for me. It's just like the Soviets absolutely would have loved to claim that the Americans that it was a scam and they never did it. And the Soviets in the space race, because up until that point, in many regards, they were. Yeah. So that just ends that one for me. Yeah.
New album called Wrath and Ruin. What led to that title? And I mean, it seems from my perspective, the very first song on the record is about like the kings of Norway, murdering people who wouldn't convert to Christianity. But maybe I'm off base there. That was my takeaway.
Yeah, it's not specifically Norway, but yeah, ancient. The feudal. It's kind of, you ask the question: how do the lords become the lords?
Yeah.
so yeah, Wrath and Ruin. Well, as if you went through our discography, you probably noticed that they all start with a W. Technically, the fourth one is Warbringer 4, so it too starts with the W, if anyone wants to. So basically, that's where I'm starting, is straight up, I'm looking at a list of words that begin with W, trying to get the wheels going. Nice. I see the word wrath. So the thing that actually popped into my head, and the record's not about this anyway, but it's... In Lord of the Rings, in Return of the King, King Theoden of the Riders of Rohan does a pre-battle speech, and he says, like, now for wrath, now for ruin, and a red night fall. And I'm like, that's awesome. And so just the phrase wrath and ruin pops out from that. I see the word wrath, and then that comes to my head, and I'm like... And I had a couple versions. I just shortened it down. And I was like, that sounds just grim and destructive and evil. And it does, I think, fit some of the themes of the record of class power. And the album title line shows up in the song Strike from the Skies as well, which... the line it appears in goes like this. It's rain down the wrath and ruin, just as all empires do. What sorrow to the many, what glory to the few. And I'm like, that's about it. That's what we're trying to get here, is the sort of the owners of the world, if you will, just stepping on everybody who's not them, pretty much, which we see today. And that's where the sword and the cross, that's why I'm talking about the feudal lords, is to say, like, we have this myth that we have a free society and we don't have class society and we don't have lords. And I'm like, and my answer to that is to go to point at the listener and go, like, as if I'm one of the lords, I'm one of the peasants. But in that song, I'm trying to, like, point at the listener and go, like, you believe that, you ignorant peasant? I own you. My children will own your children, and my children's children will own their children forever. And sorry for the yelling, but I just thought of that lyric, and I'm like, that's evil. That's excellent. I got to do that.
Yeah.
So I wrote the outro to that song. That whole outro section existed as it is verbatim before there was any music, actually.
Oh, nice. That was one of my favorite things from Sides of Thrash, is you talking about, like, you have a riff in your head and then, like, basically singing the riff to your guitar players and being like, write this. As a person who always has riffs in my head and cannot play it on guitar, I'm jealous that you have somebody to translate it for you.
I'm very lucky in that regard. I didn't do as much riffing on this one, but it was. But all the songs were written. 7 out of the 8 songs began with a lyric and concept.
Yeah,
Jackhammer's the only one that didn't. That title came about because I'm like, it sounds like a fucking jackhammer.
Write the song.
And I'm like, that's a cool word. Let's go. But definitely Wrath and Ruin is to describe, like, themes of class power. And the album cover is supposed to depict, like, sort of a two-tiered society where there's this shining city in the clouds, and then below it, ruins, wastelands, and slums.
Yeah. Was that your concept that you presented to the artist? Because the cover is fucking gorgeous.
Yes, it is. Yeah. And I was like, look at, I threw a bunch of like sci-fi stuff at him. So here's like the city from Blade Runner. Here's a hive city from Warhammer 40K. It's called a hive. So it tells you what you need to know, that, right? Yeah. And just kind of and then also I put a bunch of scenes of modern Los Angeles, just because there's some parts of LA that look pretty bad if you go there. Like place we rehearsed and wrote this thing in. Oh God, it's not a good scene, Yeah, that's where some of the imagery in Jackhammer came from. Actually, I'm like trying to describe pretty much the place around where we're writing it, which is a scene of urban decay and stuff in one of the richest cities in the world. Yeah,
it's a cool contrast of like futuristic Lord of the Rings, like, and then just like the junk city below, like, it's phenomenal.
Well, I mean, and today we got some of our oligarchs are talking about building bunkers or space stations or whatever, basically fleeing the wreckage that they're leaving behind for everyone else. So that too. There's some sci-fi where they have them doing that, and they're doing it in reality too, or they're at least trying.
Yep. Album's out March 14th. You guys are hitting the road shortly after the record release. What's the plan for this year? Just be on the road or
tour?
Yeah.
That's the plan. Yep. We got USA, Europe, 3 separate tours, about 3 months and change on the road scheduled right now, and they're adding more to it every day. And then we're talking about when the record comes out, I'm actually putting off accepting some tours for later this year. They're talking, I'm getting offered for next year already.
Oh wow!
So it's a lot, man. I have it all spinning in my head, and I can't keep it all straight, quite frankly. You ask me where I am on any given day on one of these tours, and I won't know until about 3 days before it happens.
Yeah.
I'll know where it starts and where it ends, and that's about it. So we're looking to give this record a full touring cycle, and we're excited to do it. I think we got a lot of great shows lined up. We got USA with Alagion, Skeletor Remains, Summoning the Lich, and that starts in about a month. Then we got Europe with Carnation, Cryptopsy, and Decapitated. So a lot of death metal this year. And then we got Europe in the summer. We're playing a wide variety of festivals and a bunch of club shows in between. Some of them are with Creator and Rotting Christ, which is excellent. Yeah. And then just a bunch of them are us playing every festival we can get our name on. So, yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I looked at your tour dates. No East Coast, man. It's a bummer.
It's unfortunate. Yeah, we missed I think we got New York in there, and we go up like the southern end of the East Coast, but we don't go into like Massachusetts or nothing,
Yeah.
Which we should.
Yep.
I don't get to pick it all. It's all over that. But I like playing. I've heard some people saying play New England, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I love to play New England. I would want to, A better kind of world is not possible. I'm far too subdated to utter a scream, but no longer do I dream. No longer do I dream. Thanks first off to any who listen and enjoy it. I hope you guys like Wrath and Ruin. It's our attempt to make a 7th record that's worth listening to, that offers, the band's called Warbringer, so it's got to kick your ass or you should ask for your money back. But we try to, within that, be as interesting as we can. So we put a lot of work into each of these songs, and we hope this is a record you can really sink your teeth into and listen to for years to come, hopefully. So we really hope you guys enjoy it, and we look forward to getting out there and playing some of this stuff for you.
Awesome. Thanks so much for hanging out, man. Appreciate it. I know you got a lot of these today, so thanks for your time.
Awesome. Yeah, well, I appreciate you very much. And hey, glad this got you into some thrash metal. If one I could recommend if you're just like heavy, it's kind of hard. It's got it's from New York, so it does have like a tinge of that hardcore to it. It's a big influence on our band. Demolition Hammer, Epidemic of Violence, 1992. That is a brutal thrash metal record, basically.
All right.
Yeah, so that's a huge influence on us. That if you're into just heavy, brutal stuff, I can't recommend it. For me, it's top tier.
I'll make sure I'll check that one out.
Yeah. And the dude does have there's like a hardcore element to his vocals. You can tell they're from New York, that kind of thing.
Yeah, those New York guys, they got a vibe.
They got that vibe. I know the one you're talking about. Yeah, it's that vibe.
Yep.